Hi, welcome to this episode of Your Next Door Neighbor. We love people. We love people's lives.
We do.
We love the story of people's lives.
Yeah.
And in this episode, we have
Lisa Hubler. Lisa Hubler, I've known for probably 20 years. Her husband, Dale, gave me my first job when I moved to Los Angeles in 1980.
Sweetheart, Dale.
Yeah. And Lisa is a hypnotherapist, and she also teaches hypnotherapy classes.
Which is just recent.
Which she started in the last year. And she's developed her own method, which she calls the Hubler method, which combines hypnotherapy and restorative yoga, and it is fantastic.
This is something that's dear to your heart.
It's dear to my heart. I actually studied with her, and I found it compelling. It was great.
So and we hope you find it compelling also.
Yeah.
Lisa's story.
I'm your next door neighbor.
My name is Lisa Hubler, and I was born in Encino, California, and I grew up in the San Fernando Valley.
And where were your parents from?
My parents were also from the San Fernando Valley.
How many generations?
My father's parents came here in 1917 from St. Louis, Missouri to San Fernando Valley, what's now Pacoima, and built a house filled with, when all it was orange groves back then. My mother's parents came here from Utah when she was about 4, and they lived in Studio City, California, and my grandfather was one of the first radio and TV announcers in Studio City, California.
Who was his name?
Russell Stewart.
And who did he announce for? For movies? Or
KFI, I think.
Right.
One of the old
they're defunct
radio
now,
stations.
long defunct,
Yeah,
right?
I think it was KFI.
Yeah.
And then other things too, I don't know. But he was friends at that time with drinking buddies with Lionel Barrymore and W.C. Fields. And
Did he ever tell you stories?
no, my mom told me stories. He died when I was really little, but
What did your mom
I've seen
tell you?
pictures of
Yeah.
him. She said they were all drunks. But that was what everyone did then. They drank a lot.
But what did they do while they were drinking?
They talked and told stories, and that was that time in Hollywood. And
So your parents were born in the valley too?
yeah, my father was born in the San Fernando Valley, and my mother was born in Utah, but lived here since she was 4.
So you've seen the place change.
Well, they
Oh,
have,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, they have for sure. It was all Orange Grove.
It was all orange groves where my father grew up. He said the only job there at the time was for any kids was in high school was to work at the frozen orange juice canning factory, and they'd walk to school through the orange groves.
Wow.
And he was in Pacoima?
Yeah, it wasn't called Pacoima then, but it's Pacoima
So
now.
when do your parents tell you stories about how it has changed, the valley? Did they ever talk
Yeah,
about
my mom remembers growing up in Studio City, renting horses at a stable near Universal Studios, and riding horses along the LA River before it was paved over. My father was a conductor of musical comedies and opera. My mother was an opera singer.
Where did your dad conduct?
He conducted, back in those days, like the 60s, 70s, he died in 83, so that was his cutoff point. But before then, there was a lot of smaller theater. Like there wasn't an LA opera company, so there were smaller opera companies. They even had their own opera company for a while. But he also, LA Civic Light Opera, San Diego Civic Light Opera. I was a kid, but I remember that he did a lot of things like that. Even he went out to San Bernardino and did shows. And then they had their own opera company and they toured around, and I was the page turner he played the piano and conducted.
Did you ever see that cartoon where Bugs Bunny did that? He turned the pages?
I don't know if I saw it turn the pages, but I remember him singing opera. And
Yeah.
That was my introduction to opera. Bugs Bunny.
Kill the wabbit. Yeah.
Did he? Was he able to conduct for the studios at all? Did he do sessions? For
No,
them?
he didn't do film.
Didn't do film.
Mm-mm.
And your mom,
That was all
you
live.
said, was a
She was an opera singer.
wow.
That's what she wanted. She did a lot of opera singing. She also worked. But yeah, we grew up with opera and musical comedy before I knew any other music.
So when you were growing up, where was your home base here in the Valley?
In Van Nuys.
In Van Nuys?
Yeah.
So did you go to Van Nuys school?
I went to Grant High,
Uh-huh.
and I went to Valley College, and then I went to USC. So it was all very local.
And what'd you study at USC?
I was an English and American Lit major.
But you also did music, didn't you? Or no?
I thought I would be an opera singer because I loved that music. And I took voice lessons from 16 to 23. But I really wanted to sing with a huge dramatic soprano voice, like these roles that I'd seen, like Madame Butterfly and Violetta and Verdi and Puccini heroines. And I just didn't have those kind of vocal cords. You have to have you have to be born to sing that music. So I could have had a lighter lyric voice, which is what I did, but I didn't want to, so I stopped singing when I couldn't sing the way that I wanted to sing.
So you didn't see yourself in any of the more minor roles in opera?
No, I
With the
just
voices?
I think it was also a lot of work. I studied French and German and Italian because you have to be able to sing in all those languages. It's kind of like being a ballerina. It takes every bit of your attention energy. So I just decided I didn't want to do that. And then I went to USC and I studied literature. I thought I would be a writer. And did a semester abroad in Paris. And then actually lived there for a year and a half.
What was that like?
That was fantastic. Yeah.
What did you like about it?
I just loved living in Europe. I so wanted to get out of LA. I was such a LA girl growing up here. And so when I went there, it felt so much more like me. It felt so much more simpatico.
What inspired Paris, though?
It was through USC, the semester abroad.
Okay. Yeah.
And I waited to do it till my last semester because I didn't really care about participating in the graduation. My friends and my girlfriend, I always said that was so bourgeois. We didn't participate in our high school graduation either. We graduated, but we didn't want to do the ceremony. And so it was the same thing. I didn't care about the ceremony for USC either. I mean, I just, graduate, get the diploma. So I waited till my last semester when most other students did it at their second year. And then I figured I'll get there with USC and then I'll get settled and I'll look around, I'll figure out a way to stay. And I did.
And what was it?
So I was an au pair for a year after the semester was over and I was graduated, but I didn't have to come back because I'd bought my ticket for, that time it was a round trip ticket and I got it for a full year. So instead of going home with everyone, I stayed. And I got a job as an au pair and I lived in Paris for another year. I was taking care of these two little boys.
And
which
where in
was
Paris
fun.
was that?
That was actually just outside of Paris at a little town called Geneviève-sur-Marne. So it was 20 minutes outside Paris on the RER. So it was like out in the country, lovely, but you're right close to Paris. When I was with USC, with that group, we lived right in the center of Paris. So that was very nice. And I lived there for a year and a half. And then I spent about 6 months in Germany with some old friends who were living there. And then I met...
What part of Germany?
In Frankfurt. Yeah. Frankfurt and Bad Homburg, which is a little bit outside of Frankfurt. And then I met my boyfriend who was going to Oxford. And so after I was finished with all of that, we decided I would come live with him in Oxford. So I lived there for a year, which was really cool.
So you're talking about
Yeah,
3 years?
three
altogether?
Yeah, it was about
almost, you were
3
young.
years. There was a year and a half in Paris. And the rest of the time was...
Now, which country did you enjoy the most?
I loved France. I loved them all. I loved Europe. It was just great. This is in the early 90s.
So what brought you back to the United States, though? What brought you back to California?
It was really weird. My boyfriend Anthony and I, we were supposed to get married. He was really decided he would stay in, because I was said, I don't want to go back to LA. I'm happy to be here. I don't want to go back to the United States. So it kind of helped him say, okay, let's do this. Let's stay committed and get married at some point. And I don't know how to describe it really, other than some kind of mystical grace experience one morning after we'd gone to a party and everyone stayed up too late drinking champagne and having fun. It was around the New Year. And I woke up really early in the morning, you know, when you have that headache from you drank too much and you're thirsty. And I went and got some water, and I remember sitting on the floor in the spare room because I didn't want to go back to sleep. I didn't want to wake up anybody. And all of a sudden I had this feeling of like amazing grace just flowing into me, like these most euphoric, ecstatic feelings came from seemingly nowhere. And I remember at the time feeling I was getting like these answers and insight into my life and into what I was doing. And everything seemed that it was just perfect and beautiful, and like I understood on some deeper level. And a lot of messages, but I don't remember a lot. I know I wrote them down at the time, but the one that stood out very strongly was this message that said, you have to go back to Los Angeles at the end of the summer. And while I was in that state, which lasted at least 3 days and maybe 5, it was a long time. I was floating. I hardly need to eat anything. I hardly slept.
Is this the first time this happened
Yes.
to you? Or was
Yes, and I was sitting there with a headache, feeling hungover, and all of a sudden, like, it broke open to, like, God's grace flowing down from me. And I wasn't a religious person, but that's sort of the way that I could describe it, feeling grace. And when I got that, everything, it was seemed so, it was like, oh, go back to LA at the end of the summer. Okay, whatever it was telling me, seemed like it was perfect. It was fine. Then when I told Anthony about it, he was like, what? You're going back to LA? You said you were going to stay here. We're going to get, like, no, I have this. He didn't really understand. It's sort of strange to talk
did you
about.
Understand?
But for me, whenever I've had a very, very strong feeling about doing something, I would just follow that. And that was the strongest thing I'd ever had. It felt like it could not be, that it would hurt me in some way to ignore that. But after it wore off after a few days, and I remember walking down the streets, and everything seemed like it was illuminated and glowing. And even like looking down, I see like some dog poop on the street. And even that had this glow to it, everything. So it was like a high, like being on ecstasy, or so, I would imagine. So nothing bothered me. But of course, what goes up must come down eventually. It wore off. As I said, I think it was about 5 days. It was at least 3, but probably 5. It wore off, and then I was like, I don't want to go back to LA. I don't want to go back. I thought I escaped. I love it in Europe. I love traveling around. It was easy, all the different countries. I spoke the languages from learning opera pretty well. I was getting good at my German, and my French was very good. But it just felt like I had to do it. And so then that put a big rift in our relationship, though we were still very close. But I came back to LA at the end of the summer. That was August in 1993, the end of the summer. End of August. And
Did you find what you were searching for? Did you find?
Well,
what's that path?
I didn't know what I was searching for. I was just doing what I was told.
Right.
That
And
what
who
I
do
was
you think you were being
directed.
told by?
I was directed. I don't know. It was I don't know if it was God or this inner voice, my soul. I went back because I felt like I had to. I was directed. I went back, but I wasn't very happy to be back. It was not a good feeling. But I did come back. We tried to keep our long distance relationship for some time. I would still go back and forth and visit, and he would come to LA. But a month after coming back, and I didn't have any money, and I went back to my mom's house. She lives in San Fernando still, near where my father grew up. And I needed to get a job, so I figured I wasn't sure what I was going to do, so I went back to waiting tables to get some money, and I got a job at Le Café. But yeah, I met Dale at Le Café. He hired me. And so maybe that was the reason I came back here, because I would have never have become, the reason you're interviewing me is because I've created restorative hypnotherapy, and you took the class and found it fascinating.
But before we go there, let's build to that. So you meet Dale, but you guys weren't in a relationship. You were just an employee, or did you?
Not for a while.
Right.
I was an employee for a while, and then.
And while you were doing that, was there other things you were thinking about working at?
Or waiting for the next direction.
The next direction, yeah, it never came that strong again. I would sort of get little hints of it, but it's never been that strong since. No, I felt kind of swamped. I don't know if that's the right word. But I enjoyed Le Cafe. I love music, and so there was music 7 nights a week. So I just waited tables for a while because I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be doing. And because I'd waited tables in college and stuff because it was a good way to make money. It's flexible. I could have my own apartment and not have to work full time. So it was good for that. And then Le Cafe was such a fun place. So I think I was just sort of seeing what happens and just okay, I'm just going to have fun, and it was kind of a fun time. And then Dale and I did start dating, and then Anthony and I finally kind of called it quits. Dale and I started dating. We went on and off. We dated other people, but we always stayed very close. Dale and I, we had this instant connection and when I came, he interviewed me, and I thought to myself, I know I'm going to get this job. This guy likes me. You can always tell a guy likes you. I'll get it. I still remember what I was wearing. I remember how Dale was, and he said he liked it because I had a little bit of an English accent because I'd come from a year in Oxford, and my voice is it takes on whatever I'm around a long time. So those were good years. I think I worked there for 3 years and loved learning about the jazz music upstairs. But it wasn't until, so that was in 93. It wasn't until, when did we get married? Well, we formed our business. We formed our business because Dale found this hypnosis. He got interested in hypnosis by seeing a piece on 60 Minutes about women using hypnosis for childbirth. So he was looking to do something different after Le Cafe closed, after the earthquake in 96 or 95?
94.
Oh, is it 94?
It was 94.
94, that's right. Yeah. So I guess I only worked there for like a year. And then it became El Balcone, and then I worked there too. So that was probably the whole. But it was, Le Cafe had already closed. We weren't kind of like trying to figure out what to do. I kept thinking I'm going to be a writer and would write things, and still nothing was really taking off. And then he asked me, do I want to go with him to this class that this woman was teaching hypnosis? And I said, sure, that sounds fun. I didn't know anything about hypnosis, but I did know about yoga and meditation. I'd learned all of those things since coming back from Europe.
So you just had no reason to say no, really.
Yeah, I was like, okay, Monday
it's fun,
night,
let's
yeah,
go.
I'll go. He goes, the lady says you can audit it. Tell me if you think it's good, if I should take it. So I went with him, and it was so fascinating. We both signed up. I mean, she must have hypnotized us that night, but she was great. She was in her 70s. She was teaching a small group like we did. She was awesome, and she got us really excited about the power of the mind and using words. And that night she said she's going to hypnotize us, and I was very excited of what's it going to be like. We're just sitting in chairs, and close your eyes and focus on your breathing, take a few deep breaths, and then she had you imagine going down a staircase, 10 deeper, 9 relaxing, very standard kind of traditional hypnosis, and lots of imagery. And after it was over, it was I was like, this is what it feels like when I meditate. This is what it feels like when my favorite pose in yoga is the last one, where you lay on your back, Shavasana, the corpse pose, and you just let go. And that's why you do all those poses, so you have this wonderful letting go feeling. And that's what hypnosis felt like to me. It felt like those same things, but it was just had a different process. It was more imagery, it was more guided, it was more goal-oriented in a way. So I immediately saw the connection. We both signed up that night. It was, I don't remember how many hours it was. It was I don't remember, it was so long ago, it was 1999. Maybe it was 50 hours and then practice similar to what we've done, or 100 hours or something like that. So we went every Monday night, and I think it was like 4 hours. And we did that for quite a few weeks, and then we practiced with each other. And I started integrating with my background in yoga and meditation.
Now, I think that's a real genius thing, the combination. So I want to know how you and what you did to combine those. I mean, the thought process.
Well, like I said, I'd already been doing yoga and meditation when those were things I picked up after I came back from Europe. So I wonder if I would have picked them up there. Maybe that was all part of the master plan for sending me back here.
Why not?
So yeah, right, and meeting Dale right away, and learning about hypnosis, and then bringing these three things together. So let's see, I was going to this yoga studio, Yoga Body and Spirit in Toluca Lake, and I told the teacher what I was doing, the owner of the studio, and I said, I'd like to do a workshop where someone does the yoga, and when we get to the Shavasana, I'll guide them in a hypnosis, and we'll do a workshop, and we'll call it, I think, weight loss was always popular. We'll call it Hypnosis and Yoga for Weight Loss and Self-Confidence. It's very straightforward. And it filled up. All these people signed up. They want that. They want weight loss and self-confidence. There were some thin ones in there. They go, I'm just here for the self-confidence. I remember that. But they were very intrigued, the description we wrote, how the yoga opens. So this woman, we did it together. She led all the yoga, and then when they were all laying down their mats. And then after a while, so I did that for a while with several different people at different yoga studios, and people loved them. They loved the hypnosis. They were going really deep, and deep meaning like they were relaxing profoundly, and would often sometimes say, I didn't even hear everything you said, but I feel amazing now. And they were just lying on their backs. But then I started feeling like I want to guide the yoga, because one of the things I loved about learning hypnosis was being very careful with your words, because the words have an impact on how they're received, and that's a lot of what you use with, quote, hypnosis is the words to make a change, because people hear the suggestions, right, the words. And having always loved words, my father loved literature, so we'd always play with words as kids and have word games. Then I was an English and American Lit major. So I loved the word aspect and the using of language that I learned in hypnosis. Now I would hear the yoga teachers. I wouldn't like the way they use some of their language, but I felt like I could use the language more skillfully, but that wasn't my part. So I told the yoga instructor, I want to learn some yoga. And she said, why don't you do a restorative yoga teacher training? I just wanted to say I'm a yoga instructor. She goes, it's shorter. Judith Lassiter, who's famous queen of restorative yoga, she's doing a week-long in San Francisco. And so Dale said, okay, let's go do it. So restorative yoga is the yoga of relaxation using props and bolsters and to fully support the body, to guide people, and where you stay in that pose still for long periods of time, like 10, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, more, to facilitate really deep relaxation. So I would get my certificate as a yoga teacher. I did that training. We went to San Francisco, and that was incredible. It was like 30 hours that week of playing with all of these bolsters and cushions and pillows and putting all these, like 50 women there, putting each other in different positions. It was all women. And I learned about the eye pillow and supporting the hands. I thought, this is trance. They're all going to hypnosis. They just don't call it hypnosis. That's deep relaxation is a very reliable way to go into hypnosis. So we came home from that training with the car stuffed full of bolsters and pillows, and now I felt like I could say I could lead the whole workshop. I did very simple yoga, but I just wanted to have that, I'm a yoga instructor. And but in my that was just for the workshops. In my private practice, we had a lazy boy similar to this, and people were just laying back in it. And then I learned this pose called Instant Maui. Instant Maui, zero gravity, anti-anxiety posture in that class with Judith. And I was like, that's what I want to put my clients into. So I started, instead of just having them lean back in the chair, I put the bolsters under their legs, supported everything, put the palm pillows, the eye pillow, all the things that I had learned to fully support the body. And then people were going really deep into their trance experiences. And I was very fortunate that this woman that we studied with, contrary to what most hypnosis instructors teach, that people need to kind of stay up, they need to be awake, they need to hear, you don't want them to fall asleep. She said, don't worry if they fall asleep, it's not ordinary sleep. So I set them up to be as comfortable as possible. And my voice has a way of taking people into those states anyway. So the combination of putting that position and my voice, people were like, within just a couple of minutes, they'd be like, snoring, going, body's twitching, release, and afterwards say, I feel amazing, I feel incredible. And their problems that they came in for were just like disappearing, as well as all of other kinds of things. Like this one woman, I want to stop eating cake, she said. And after that first session, she said, I don't even want it anymore. And I didn't, it was just very astoundingly rapid change when I integrated the restorative yoga with the trance experience. And so that's what I really was going more into, was the deeper they go, which again is the opposite of what mostly you learn, the more transformational it becomes for them. And then that's about the time around 2004 that I met Shinzen. I learned about him from my meditation teacher.
And who's Shinzen?
Shinzen is Shinzen Young, who you just saw, a very great meditation teacher, came to LA. And he would talk, I went to one day at a yoga studio of his meditation, and I really liked him, and he talked about doing longer retreats where you meditate for 5 to 7 days. So I went to one of those retreats, and I absolutely loved it, where you meditate all day long and listen to Shinzen give these amazing Dharma talks. And he would talk about this state called gone, where gone is where you go into this place where everything kind of cancels out for a while. All the activities, the expansion and contraction that create us and everything at all times, at every moment, it will get to a point there it will temporarily sort of zero out. And it's this profound place of absolute rest and calm. And it's a very deep state, and it's close to enlightenment, or what's the other word that he would use? Not emptiness, but zero, the state of zero, before we're in the formless realm before things come out into form. But that's what my clients were saying. They would come out of those deep states and they would say, I was gone. So I was like, well, he's talking about gone as like this deep enlightened state. And my clients are saying the same word, I was gone. They would come out, sometimes they would go, where was I? They knew they weren't sleeping in an ordinary sense, so I started thinking that they're going to that same place. And I started asking Shinzen about it, and he was saying, yeah, that sounds very much like that. And so that was bringing that's how these kept getting integrated, understanding more about meditation, how it was relating to these states, learning more about yoga through my own continuing practice, that mind-body connection. And then, so my practice became not at all like what, quote, most traditional hypnosis is. It was why we called it restorative hypnotherapy, because it restores you.
Do you feel like you were being guided by this, drawn into it, or consciously moving towards it? Or
Well, it's like things would just come to me. All of these things were just coming to me. But I would be interested in it, and then the pieces would come together. So I feel like they were just coming to me, but I noticed them, and then I pursued them.
Would you talk to Dale about these things that were coming to you and saying, does that make sense to you too, or were these sort of things?
Yeah, no, Dale was always supporting me.
Yeah.
We got married in 2004, and it was after we formed Mind Matters, our company, in 2000 that. So we had our company. We weren't actually together as a couple. We were very good friends, but at that point we weren't together as a couple. We had done our business for a few years. Oh, and this is a funny thing how all these things fit together too. Laura Huxley, Aldous Huxley's wife, used to live right up the street from where Dale was living, Dale's father, in Beechwood Canyon. Well, actually, up at the top of Mulholland Drive, under the Hollywood sign. And I had become friends with her. She was very open. The gate was always open. And I just walked up there one day and knocked on the door because it seemed very friendly. And this woman came to the door, and I said, I heard that Aldous Huxley used to live here. I just was wondering if, and she said, yes, I am Laura Huxley. I was like, oh my goodness, Laura Huxley. I remember her name too. My dad had her book on the shelf as well, You Are Not the Target. And so she was very kind, and she invited me in, and we became friends, and I would come by and help her out. And she knew about hypnosis she had met Milton Erickson, who was a great influence on my teaching, and they called the father of modern hypnotherapy, because he brought it out of that old style authoritarian, you will do this and you will no longer. Anyway, so we became really good friends. And I met this girl through Laura, who was helping Laura with her, she was at that time doing some promotions for her organization. And so this young woman came, and we sort of hit it off as friends. And she said, you have to listen to this. And she handed me this box that had 16 cassettes in it. The Science of Enlightenment by Shinzen Young. And so I started listening to these cassettes. And I think that was my initial introduction to Shinzen, about meditation and enlightenment. And it was helping me understand what my clients were going through in these deep states. And then he had, some of them were guided meditations. They were like 45 minutes long. And you were supposed to practice them. So I started doing that. Every morning I would wake up and I would sit on my bed and I would play one of those guided meditations. I would just be meditating. There's no specific suggestions. It's just about focusing your mind and paying attention to your body, paying attention to your mental images and mental talk and your body sensations. That's how he broke up consciousness, which I thought was really fascinating. And through doing those meditations, I feel like that's when I realized that Dale and I belonged together. We had been on and off for so long. It was a revelation. I told Shinzen, your meditations helped Dale and I get together. And so we'd been working this together, and then for a long time, and now we were really not just the business partners, but love partners as well. So we got married, and we just kept on building our business, and he was always supporting me whatever I wanted to do. You want to go off on a week retreat with Shinzen? That's fine. You want to go do some trainings with this teacher or that teacher? He was always supporting me. And that's how our business developed up until finally learning how to teach it.
Why would a client want to come to you?
Because Dale, my partner, my husband, was always talking me up.
Oh, but for what? For what reason?
He would say, well, people come they want to lose weight. A lot of it was stress, anxiety. They want to feel more confident. They want to sleep better. They want to quit smoking. We did a lot of that in the early days. Not as many people smoke now. And so, we got a phone number. People would use the Yellow Pages back then to find us. We even did some advertising in the LA Weekly. I mean, it's so totally different now. There was no social media. We did get a website, and Dale, and I remember thinking, we don't need a website. Dale was always the forward thinker. He goes, yeah, we need a website. So we had a website from early on. That's how we would get people. People would call and, you just talk to them. What is it that you need? How can I help
So
you?
so if somebody was to call and say, I want to quit smoking, and you would say to them that deep relaxation is a sort of weapon against smoking. How would that work?
Well, partly, I wouldn't say a weapon. I would that people are smoking to relax. Usually, they feel like the smoking helps them with their tension. So if you can teach them how to relax without it, and then not only just learn to relax and manage their anxiety of the moment, but to help them let go of a lot of that built up tension that's been inside of them their whole lives, that for that person, they use a cigarette, somebody else might overeat, somebody else might stick a needle in their arm, just depending on, their background and who they are and the experiences they've been through. I started seeing it was all based on fear and tension and discomfort, that's why they do these maladaptive behaviors. So partly through learning what I learned about from Shinzen, but going to these deep states, you literally are, the stuck energy comes up and it's able to be released. So I saw that was happening in the deep states that I was doing. And it was rather accelerated. So I'd explain to people that this work is going to help you to let go of a lot of the underlying fears and stressors and tensions that are fueling your smoking, or your overeating, or your nail biting, or whatever, pulling your hair out, whatever they do. And most people get that. They got that intuitively. Yeah, they're not feeling comfortable within themselves. They're not at peace in their mind and body, so they do these behaviors. And then the work that we would do, those really wonderful deep states, would help them feel connected to themselves again in a deep way. I think it really connects them to their deepest self, their true self in a way, beyond all of the surface craziness. When people can get really still and quiet, there's always something that they touch inside that is good and that is wonderful, and that I think is a peace of mind, where they feel at peace and comfortable with themselves, no matter what anything else is going on in their life. And I remember thinking that I think that's what most people want, whatever beneath everything that they're doing, they're doing it because they want to be at peace with themselves. So they think if I have this much money, or if I have this kind of job, or this kind of car, or this kind of thing, it's going to help me to finally feel like, oh, I'm okay inside. Somehow that was what I intuited, and so that was the premise that I went on. So I just keep helping people to go into those deep states so they could touch base with themselves, so to speak. And that's what I had learned from Shinzen's talks, that deep meditation was also where or in yoga, that you meet your Atman. In deep meditation, you could call it your true self or your no self, depending if you're coming from yoga or Buddhism, same thing. And yeah, people they would find it much easier. They do find it much easier to change when they've had that experience of connecting to themselves.
What's the concept of no self?
So Shinzen's work, Vipassana meditation, mindfulness, comes from Buddhism, though it's a secular version of it. You don't have to be a Buddhist. You don't have to take any vows to do it, to practice it. But in some of the deeper concepts of Buddhism is that there's no self as a thing. We think that there is this, inside of us, there is this entity that is me, and yet that actually there is no solid, separate, enduring. It's just an activity that's manifesting in different ways at any moment, based on memories that you have and what you're seeing at the moment and what you're feeling. And so it's not that there's no it's not that there's no self, as of course there's my sense of myself, but it's not a solid enduring thing. It's a product of the moment that's constantly shifting. So Shinzen would say, you're not a thing called rich, you're an activity called rich. You're the activity known as rich. He would say, I'm the activity known as Shinzen or Lisa. And I thought that was really cool, that you're an activity. You're a verb, you're not a noun. And so that's the idea of no self. That's not no self as thing. The Buddhists don't believe that there is this eternal soul. It's just this constant flow that's always been in motion. I don't know if I'm not a Buddhist scholar. I've just been studying this my whole life, and it's very deep, but that's sort of how I understand it. Is that, and we've just evolved constantly from this flow that's been going on for all of eternity, and we came into existence, and we're never still for a moment, and then when our energy goes back into the one energy, like a wave going back into the ocean. So that's the no self as thing. It's not no self at all. Of course we have a sense of self. I don't know.
I'm relieved to know I'm a verb.
Yeah, isn't it nicer
An action
actually to
verb.
be a
I look at you
verb?
as an adverb.
You're an activity.
More of an adverb.
I like that. I got
It's
that.
you're a cadence, a way of vibrating, a flow of energy known as Patrick.
So when
That's what-
you're working with your clients,
I don't tell them that.
I get that, but you're thinking about it. It's part of who you are. It's part of what
Why
you
don't you
do.
tell them that? It might be relief for them.
Well, I mean, I don't say it in the first session. So, you ready to realize
Yeah,
that
you're an
there's no
activity
self?
and a verb.
That you have no self?
You don't exist as a noun.
Yeah, people have that. They have it through their own experience. Like when they say, like, where was I? That I self, like my Zen teacher called it your I am self. That temporarily goes away. And that's different than sleeping. Where was I? That activity, all ceased. And they went to that place called gone. And they went back to the formless source, as Shinzen would call it. And so that's not what you generally learn in hypnosis school. You don't learn about you're going back to the formless womb of all creation. The zero state before plus and minus pull apart, and there's the activity comes back into existence.
But again,
But
since you know that,
sometimes
when you
it
studied
depends
it,
on the
It's part
person.
of how you perceive your
Yes,
clients.
yes. So sometimes it depends on the person, and depends on, it's just my activities interacting with theirs, and if that's however it's coming up, if that's appropriate to talk about that, I will. If it's not, you don't need to. I'm just kind of giving you the background. That's the influences that I had. But Shinzen was a huge influence. I think that's so cool. You went and spent time with him yesterday. I spent hours listening to him, and it really informed so much of my understanding of what happens when people go into these deep states. And he called it, I asked him once, I go, why is it people go to those states and they don't remember anything, they don't remember what I said, and they come out, but they go, I feel amazing, and then like their problems have shrunk from like this to this, or they just don't, those things aren't even an issue anymore. And he said, that's the healing power of gone. And I was like, whoa, the healing power of gone. I'm still not even totally sure how that works. That's an ongoing thing, but I see it all the time. They go to that gone state, and things they start to heal themselves from the inside, and then those maladaptive behaviors, the anxieties, the freakouts just become much more. They go away, or they're much reduced.
Wow. I think that this opens up, for me, opens up doors. The healing state of gone. Mm-hmm. Because that is
The healing power of gone.
Healing power.
It's a healing, but you're right. It's a healing state too.
Healing power of gone. Okay.
Healing state of.
It seems like hypnosis is becoming more accepted by the
Medical community.
medical community in all its forms. But when you started, was this like not accepted, or did you feel like you were on the edge of something that people were starting to accept more?
Well, actually, for a long time, like in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, a lot of doctors and dentists use hypnosis. And I remember talking to this woman who'd had her babies back in the 50s, and she said she used hypnosis and didn't need any anesthesia back in the 50s.
Wow.
So it's been around in the medical establishment, but as the medical field changed, they got away from also the speed. They want to do things faster. It takes time to help somebody relax a little bit. So that sort of fell out. There you won't find as many doctors and dentists using it now as there were. There were quite a bit. There were lots of trainings. Milton Erickson was a psychiatrist. He would train people for that. So that was around. I think that it's always been kind of fringy too, but it's even more accepted now, I think. But still, it's hard to tell. So many people will still hear the word hypnosis and they go, "Oh, you can make me cluck like a chicken." "Oh, I'm not going to let anybody control my mind," because they see these movies and TV shows and never learned that you shouldn't believe everything you see on TV. Yeah, growing up in LA, I learned that early.
Super
Don't believe everything you
nefarious.
see in the movies.
But LA is the place for hypnosis actually to find root.
Yeah, because people are open to things. They're more open here probably than anywhere else in the country. Other parts of the country would be the work, meditation even would be the work of the devil, let alone hypnosis. Way on the other side of the country. But Andrew Weil started talking about medical hypnosis, so that was in the early 2000s. And then mindfulness, that exploded when we started. No one was meditating was fringy. Now teenagers come and I want to be more present. I've been meditating with Headspace, teenagers. That was crazy, unheard of 20 years ago. Headspace, an app. They meditate with apps. They go to YouTube. They want to meditate. They heard that it helps them to chill out and be calm. And because the anxiety is so prevalent. So I think that mindfulness, actually, meditation took over faster than hypnosis did in being accepted. But I think that in another 20 years, probably hypnotherapy will be where meditation is now, and where yoga is now, because those are at least
Very
here,
new yoga.
very accepted. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you are teaching now. Can you explain what you're doing and how you're doing it?
Well, for many years, clients have been asking me to teach, and they wanted to learn how to do what I do because they felt that, they saw the results that they got. And I have clients who are psychotherapists and psychologists, but it took me a while. I always say, if I had a bigger ego, I would have done it 10 years ago. But I felt like I just really wanted to learn more. I needed to learn more about it. I wasn't ready to just put it out there. At least the Hubler method. It feels like it's drawing from these massive, great traditions, yoga, meditation, even the tradition of hypnosis. So I wanted to learn a lot more about it. So finally, feel comfortable. This is the first year, or last year. Did we start in 2018, Dale? Was it last year we started? Yeah, we started last year, 2018. And that was, again, at an urging of a client of mine who is a psychologist, and she'd done a few sessions. And she goes, "I want to learn to do what made a difference for me in my life that talk therapy isn't." And so she came to me in 2013, and several times over the years had asked me to teach. And finally, she kind of pushed me enough, and I said, okay, we started teaching out of our house. We moved into this house, so it all kind of came together. And I don't call it the Hubler method. I still call it restorative hypnotherapy. But my students have been asking me to call it the Hubler method. I don't think that it says anything really about it. Another name we want to call is extreme relaxation, because everyone likes things extreme nowadays, and this is like the extremest relaxation you can get.
An extreme sport.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Well, everyone's extremely anxious, right? So what's the antidote to extreme anxiety? Extreme relaxation, right? That seems obvious to me. So yeah, we're teaching out of our home. We had 10 students, and we did it in 2 segments. of 6 classes and 5 classes. It's Sunday afternoon, 1 to 6. We did it, yeah, 1 to 6. And I would just teach them. I started teaching them separately at first. Most of them had been clients of mine. They'd experienced it already, and they enjoyed it. And so I started teaching them first the restorative yoga aspects, enough that they needed to do this. How to support the body in the very special posture that I put everyone in, the zero gravity, anti-anxiety, instant Maui posture. And then then we had another segment where I taught them about meditation, so they understand the meditative aspects of this. And they were always continue to practice these things on their own, of course. And then the next segment was more about hypnosis and the background of hypnosis and how I'm using it and my influences, and then start putting it all together, which is what I do at Mind Matters. And it transfers well. It really does. It's not just my voice. And Lisa, you just have the voice, right? And maybe it's just you, and not that it's transferable, but all of the students that were practicing, and I give them scripts so that they would have something to work with, so that they would guide, because I've written very specific things that are meditative and yet using hypnotic language very specifically, teach them how to do that, but also having a script so they could start practicing right away. And they were all telling me they were getting great results, fantastic results.
And putting together your program, what did you want to get across, do you feel? Just training people, or was there another philosophical
Spreading the
level?
knowledge.
Yeah, because I can't, so many
help
people
everybody.
need this. Yeah, so many people need this. The deep states are what they need, yet most of it out there is not. I think still most of the meditation, hypnosis, and even yoga now, it's just all about, yoga's all about, so much of it is about getting exercise. It's not about the deep mind-body connection, understanding the deeper states of realizing your true self, your Atman, that I think people do connect to in these states. So much about just getting exercise. And then meditation, I think, is still way too cerebral. Still people have too much in their heads, still a lot of judgment. People come to me all the time and say, I want to meditate, I've tried to meditate, but I just can't quiet my mind, or I just can't relax my body. There's so much anxiety that they just need to have something deeper. And this seems to be what helps many of them. Because hypnosis, by the way, is a classic last resort. 90% of the time people have tried everything and then they'll try hypnosis. So they've run the gamut of medication, meditation, yoga, Zoloft. They're trying all of these things, and talk therapy and CBT and DBT, and then they come and they're still like, they say, now I know why I feel the way I feel this way, but I still feel this way. Just knowing why didn't change anything. So these deep states are what people need. Like extreme anxiety needs extreme relaxation. That's how you calm the nervous system down. It's all based on the state of your nervous system. If you're stressed out in a state of fight or flight, every thought you think, everything you feel, every perception you have, every action you take, every word that comes out of your mouth will be predicated on the fact that you're stressed out inside, that your nervous system is agitated, and so therefore we react out of that way. It's like that's the deep root level of, and then that's very uncomfortable, and so we act out. We eat and drink and smoke in order to not feel all that discomfort from being in this overly agitated state, anxiety. So to counter that extreme anxiety, I created the extreme relaxation. And yet again, so I don't know anyone else who's doing it except a few of my students that are out there seeing people.
Could you use the extreme relaxation as a tool during the day to suppress anxiety as somebody might find it's building up on them? Or do they have to come here and be in that state?
when you're not suppressing the anxiety, you're reducing it.
Okay.
So in order to do that, you need some initial sessions of the really deep state, like at least 45 minutes, fully supported, guided, quieted. And then before you even do that, people have had like another 45-minute conversation generally with me about what's going on. So it stirs up in their head what the issue is. It brings up the emotions. It opens the doors in their mind. It lights up the neural networks. Then they go into that really deep state, and the deep relaxation allows the nervous system to calm down, to move out of that exaggerated fight or flight into a deep relaxation response. And then as the muscles relax, a lot of the tension is released. The old stuck energy is discharging from the past tension, and then it brings their baseline level of arousal down through doing those sessions. So then when you leave, you are so much calmer. And then the same thing that agitated you up to here before, now it's just like this. It's not a big deal. And so you do that a few times, and then it becomes just you have a different baseline. It just becomes your new trait. You're calmer. So you need to do the full deep experience, and then often people listen to their recording as they go to sleep at night. And then during the day, you can use the stress management techniques that are a lot easier, because now that your stress level is lower, now it's a lot easier to do deep breathing or count to 10 or take a little walk, and the kinds of things that we often learn as this is how you manage your stress. But it's not been reduced, and then they're not generally very effective. If a person is like really a big ball of tension, half the time they can't even breathe deeply. They're so tense it's hard to take a deep breath. So first they do those deep sessions, and then during the day, whatever they can use more, 5-10 minutes or 1 minute even relaxation techniques. Is that?
No, I got that. I got that. So where do you think you're going to with it?
Hopefully more people will learn how to do this and can help more people. And I'd like to do more teaching.
You enjoyed it?
Yeah, I really did enjoy it. I learned so much from those first two groups, and have the confidence that it can be taught. And it's not just me that brings those.
Well, we want to thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
It was my pleasure.